Well, the Warriors will have something to say about that on Wednesday night at the Target Center. But the Wolves shot 47% from three, but over 50% from three most of the night. Buoyed by their stars, 31 points from Randall, 30 from Anthony Edwards, and they now lead this Western Conference semifinal series 3-1.
That's a pretty good recap there by the voice of the Warriors, Tim Roy. Yeah, 117-110 in favor of the Timberwolves is the final. The T-Wolves take a 3-1 series lead back with them to Minnesota, where they drag the Warriors behind them. The Warriors on Wednesday will be facing elimination after tonight's loss, again by a final score 117-110. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game. That was a rough one. The Warriors actually led at halftime, and then Minnesota dominated the second half, and specifically the third quarter. Warriors led by 2 at the half. It was 60-58 Warriors at half. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves outscored the Warriors by 22 points in the third quarter, 39-17. They built a 20-point lead going into the fourth. It hovered between 16 and like 21 for the majority of the fourth quarter until the Warriors and the T-Wolves waved the white flag. The bench mob ultimately made the final score a little more pretty for the Warriors than it should have been. 117-110 the final, but this game was over from like the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter on. The Warriors' offense, it goes cold in the second half after they put together their best offensive half of the series. They were amazing offensively in the first half, scoring 60 first-half points. Pretty difficult to see the Warriors doing that without Stephen Curry, but they did it. They followed up, though, with a 17-point third quarter, and the numbers in the third quarter alone were pretty dang ugly. In the third, 17 points. Warriors were 7 for 19 from the field. They missed all of their 6 threes. They turned the ball over 7 times in that third quarter, and that paired with a 39-point third for the T-Wolves, where they go 15 for 23 from the field and 6 for 12 from downtown. And they turn the ball over 3 fewer times than the Warriors do. That was the game. That was the game right there. You lose by 7, but it more so felt like it should have been an 18, 16-point loss. You get outscored by 22 points in the third quarter. That was it. The Warriors won every other quarter in this basketball game. They won the first quarter by a point. They won the second quarter by a point. They won the fourth quarter by 13 points. A lot of that was the garbage time, but the one quarter the Warriors lost, they got absolutely blown off the court, 39-17 in the third quarter. What stands out from this game, first for Minnesota, was Anthony Edwards was absolutely amazing, particularly in the third quarter. He finishes with 30 points, 11 for 21 from the field, 6 of 11 from downtown. But in the third, he had 16 of his 30. He went 6 for 8 from the field, 3 for 5 from downtown. Every shot he was making, he was letting all of the fans sitting in the front row courtside know. He took over. The only reason he did not score more was because he picked up his third and fourth fouls in rapid succession in the back half of that third quarter. Picked up his fifth early in the fourth. Otherwise, he might have went for 35. He only played 33 minutes. 30 points in 33 minutes. That combined with Julius Randle's 31 and 5. Those two combined for 61 points, and you did not get a similar scoring punch from the Warriors' best offensive options. And considering Steph Curry is out, the Warriors' best offensive options were Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kaminga. Kaminga, I thought, had himself a really, really nice first half. Much like every other Warrior, the second half was a lot more difficult, but Kaminga finishes with 23 points, got to the line 12 times, made 11 of them. Jimmy Butler, though, only scored 14 points, only got 9 shots up, and was a game worst, minus 30 in his 34 minutes and 22 seconds. If you're unfamiliar with the plus-minus statistic, it's when that singular player is on the court, how well does your team do? And in the case of Jimmy Butler tonight, when he was out there on the floor, 34 minutes and 22 seconds, the T-Wolves outscored the Warriors by 30 points. So I'm already seeing a bunch of it on our YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame. I'm seeing it as well on our text line. Shout out to the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line, the 707 chiming in. Who else here? We got the 209, the 510, the 415. Jimmy Butler, where was playoff Jimmy? I'm seeing that right now again on YouTube. Shout out to Diego. I see Rada. I see Truth. I see Mr. 9. I see Zick. I see TG. I see a bunch of others that I don't have the time to shout out, but appreciate all you for tuning in and chiming in on our YouTube and on our text lines. Where was playoff Jimmy in this one? For me, I think it's pretty simple. If the Warriors were going to win this game, they absolutely needed more from Jimmy Butler. That goes without saying. He was amazing in Game 3 when he scored 33 points and was flirting with the triple-double. I think he just wore down. I think he's tired. And I can't really blame him. We also got to remember that he injured himself. He got hurt early in that Houston series. At the time, Steve Kerr said if this was the regular season, he would have missed another week or two. We're now a couple weeks removed from that, but I imagine playing through it has slowed the healing process, and this is not to make an excuse for the Warriors. I think it's the reality. I mean, he played 43 minutes, Jimmy did 2 days ago, 34 minutes the game before in Game 2. That was the Warriors' blowout loss where he did not have to play much of the fourth. Played over 41 minutes in Game 1. Played nearly 45 minutes in the Game 7 win versus Houston. Played 42 minutes in Game 6 in that series. And these are every other day. We're talking about heavy minutes every other day for a 35-year-old coming off of an injury to his tailbone that I'm sure does not quite feel good yet. He's not going to use it as an excuse, but I guarantee you he is feeling it on every step he takes, and definitely every time he jumps into the air. Again, not an excuse. My read on the Jimmy Butler performance today isn't that he decided, you know what, I'm not going to shoot the basketball. I'm going to defer to the others. I'm not going to be aggressive because I don't think my team needs it. No, of course the team needs it. I think he physically might not have been capable of it. He's churned out really good performance after really good performance. And tonight it was one of his worst ones. Not because he missed every shot that he took. I mean, he only got 9 shots up. He was 5 for 9 from the field, scored 14 points, relatively efficient, right? 14 points on 9 shots. I just don't think he had it in him physically in this basketball game. And that is partly, I think, what has cost the Warriors in this series. They're now down 3-1, headed back to Minnesota for Game 5. They have to win 3 games in a row. Very likely at least one will be without Steph, maybe 2, hell, maybe all 3. We do not know. Steph Curry will be reevaluated on Wednesday before that game tips off, and there's a chance that he could play. I would not count on it, though, if I'm the Warriors, based on the information that I've gathered. I don't know that for sure, but I personally would be surprised if he were to play in Game 5 on Wednesday. But part of, I think, what is hurting the Warriors in this series, and this also can explain perhaps the Steph Curry injury, is how long it took them to dispatch the Houston Rockets. They could have done it in 5. They could have done it in 6. Instead, they do it in 7. Every extra game, every extra minute, every extra second that Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green have to play, it takes a toll. And I'm not saying if the Warriors beat the Rockets in 5 or 6, maybe Steph doesn't get hurt. Who the hell knows what happens? But it's probably less likely. And maybe Jimmy Butler has more in the tank and more to offer on a game like today. Bottom line, you don't have Steph Curry. This doesn't feel like much of a fair fight. And I think what makes it so much more frustrating is the Minnesota Timberwolves, they feel awfully beatable. Credit to Minnesota. They've come in and they've taken care of business after they dropped Game 1. They've won 3 games in a row. Game 2 and tonight in Game 4 were pretty darn convincing. I thought their effort in Game 3, the effort wasn't terrible, but the way that they played was pretty darn bad. I mean, the Warriors had a 5-point lead in the fourth quarter of a playoff game against a really good team in Minnesota who I thought coming into the series was a really good team, and the Warriors are doing that without Steph Curry. They ultimately came through down the stretch, specifically based on the greatness of Anthony Edwards, and they took care of business. But through 4 games, having watched the Warriors with Steph for the entire season, and specifically with Jimmy Butler post-trade deadline, this feels like a Minnesota team that if the Warriors were fully healthy would be able to take care of in 5 or 6 games, which is what is making this experience that much more frustrating for me, and I think for a lot of you guys out there. And feel free to weigh in at 888-957-9570. Minnesota's up 3-1, but they look awfully beatable, and I feel pretty confident that if Steph Curry was available, the Warriors would at the worst be up 3-1. They would have won Game 1 as they did. They probably would have won both Game 3 and 4. Who knows about Game 2 in Minnesota? But I think at the worst, the Warriors would be up 3-1. But you don't have your MVP, one of the top 10, hell, maybe top 5 players in NBA history. It's going to be incredibly challenging. And maybe this is a boring take, and maybe all you guys out there tuning in don't want to hear this. Frankly, I'm seeing a lot of this on the text line. Shout out to the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. I see it on YouTube as well, youtube.com/957thegame. A lot of, bye-bye Steve Kerr. A lot of this franchise doesn't know how to put shooters and any support to Steph Curry and all of that. I don't feel comfortable judging the result of this series and coming away with any kind of harsh criticism of the Warriors franchise. I mean, their best player's out. Whose best player is going to miss essentially an entire series and you feel like they're going to come through and win? Maybe the Warriors of the past would do that when they had Kevin Durant behind Steph, or when Kevin Durant went out and they still had Steph and Clay and Draymond and Iguodala and a much better Kevon Looney and Sean Livingston, right, and David West. Like, that's an entirely different story. But the Warriors were playing in basketball heaven, right? This is no longer basketball heaven. When your best player is out for an extended period of time, it's going to be really, really, really tough. And I get the ask wasn't win the series without Steph. The ask was win one of the next 3 or 4 games to get to a Game 6, to extend the window a little bit longer to give Steph a chance to return. And that is still possible. They have to do it in game number 5. But, I mean, come on, guys. Let's be fair. You're down Steph Curry. Like, Minnesota has good players too. They're allowed to win these basketball games. And frankly, if you were to, and I would ask every single one of you, Warriors without Steph versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are fully healthy as they have been for this entire series. A minor injury to a rookie, Rob Dillingham, but he was healthy today and did not play. So essentially fully healthy. They only play 8 guys anyway. What's the better basketball team? This Warrior team without Steph or the T-Wolves? It is the T-Wolves by a mile. And just because I think the majority of us feel that way does not mean that the Warriors failed to put together a roster around Steph. Now, you can maybe have a problem with the way they've done it in terms of the age of their guys, but ultimately, it was Steph that got hurt. Not that I'm blaming Steph. I mean, the dude carries the heaviest load of any 37-year-old in the NBA, especially since the Lakers got Luka Doncic and LeBron doesn't need to carry as much as a 40-year-old. This is just what happens when your star, your world, the center of your basketball universe goes down. And sometimes it's as simple as that. It is just as simple as that. And again, what makes it a lot more frustrating is that I feel like this Minnesota team is incredibly beatable. If Steph was healthy, I picked Warriors in 6 to begin this series. That was, again, assuming relative health of both teams. I feel like my prediction might have been wrong if Steph stayed healthy this whole series. I felt like it might be Warriors in 5. And hell, it might have been done tonight. They might have swept this team. And maybe that's coming from a homer position. And if any of you Wolf fans out there are tuning in, you can call in and yell at me and let me know that I'm wrong. 888-957-9570. Minnesota played their best game today of this series. I mean, Ant Edwards and Julius Randle combined for 61 points. The Warriors had a 2-point lead at half. And now, they ultimately got down by 21 in the second half, and the third quarter was incredibly ugly. But, man, I mean, the Warriors without Steph could have very easily won Game 3. Now, a real conversation that we can have, and I think it only gains more steam after the performance we saw from Jimmy Butler today. Again, only 9 shot attempts, 14 points, 5 of 9 from the field, played almost 34 and a half minutes and only scored 14 points, only got 9 shots up. I think the Warriors probably missed their best chance to win a game without Steph on Saturday in Game 3. You got greatness from Jimmy Butler. He had 33 points, right? 33 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Jonathan Kaminga had 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. And you led by 5 points in the fourth quarter, and then Anthony Edwards takes over, a couple of big threes in the corners for other Timberwolves, and they win that game by 5 points. That might be the one the Warriors are kicking themselves about when this series is all said and done. And it's not all said and done yet. You're down 3-1. You got to win Game 5 on the road to earn the right for another home game back home in Game 6. Game 6 coming up on Sunday. It is by no means over, but tonight was one you really had to get. It felt like the Warriors were putting all their marbles into it. We're going to win one at home to guarantee a Game 6 at home, and we're going to cross our fingers that Steph is back by then. If so, we feel good about our chances to win Game 6 and then go into Minnesota in Game 7 and win. If he's not back, you know what? We're going to try our darndest, and maybe we come out on top and we force a Game 7, and who the hell knows what happens in a single-game win-or-go-home format. But the Warriors were not able to do that. And you knew you were just going to get like an amazing shooting performance from Minnesota. I said it after Game 1. If you were listening on Warriors Wrap-Up, I warned every single one of you out there. Minnesota is not going to shoot as poorly as they did in Game 1. When they could not hit the broadside of a barn, they've been really good shooting the basketball since, and specifically in this one, they make 16 threes, tied for the most they made in a game this series with Game 2. They shoot 47% from downtown, their best percentage by a lot in this series, and they did it with an amazing third quarter. Between the second and the third quarter combined, they scored 70 points. I know the Warrior offense was pretty darn ugly in the second half. They finished with 110 points on 43.5% shooting. Not terrible. The offense was really good in the first half where they scored 60. Then it really slowed down in the third. They committed 7 turnovers in the third quarter alone. The fourth quarter was pretty slow going for the offense as well until they waved the white flag, and it kind of got up and down. Got to the free throw line a lot with a lot of fouls in that fourth quarter. But it was the Warrior defense in this game. Losing shooters, not staying attached to Jaden McDaniels, to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, to Anthony Edwards, to Julius Randle, who made 4 threes. Naz Reid made a 3, as he tends to do versus the Warriors. To Dante DiVincenzo. It was the Warriors' worst defensive performance of the series. Game 2 was a weird game where the Warriors were just experimenting with everything. You can kind of throw that one out, but I think even including what happened in Game 2, tonight was the Warriors' worst defensive performance. And it's unfortunate that it came in this game because the first half was the Warriors' best offensive half without Steph Curry in this series. At least maybe other than the second half of Game 1 when they had a really good third quarter, then a kind of a rough fourth quarter. But I thought the first half tonight, all told, for 24 minutes, was the best offense the Warriors have had without Steph in this series. It just happened to coincide and happen during the game in which their defense struggled the most. And part of that is the age of this team. You're playing on every other day for a long, extended period of time. At some point, that's going to catch up to you, and it did in the third quarter, 39-17. In favor of the T-Wolves. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, plenty of time for your calls and your texts. You can line them up at 888-957-9570. We got a lot to get into. We'll hear from Steve Kerr, and again, plenty of time for your calls and your texts. I got my eye on our text line. Shout out to the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. You can join the conversation there at 888-957-9570. And man, the YouTube chat is popping as it always is at youtube.com/957thegame. Okay, time for a break. Mark Rennie with you here on Warriors Warriors wrap up. Dubs fall in Game 4 to the T-Wolves, 117-110. It wasn't that close, though. Some garbage time buckets made this look a little more respectable than it actually was. The T-Wolves, they control the entire second half, and they now have a 3-1 series lead headed back to Minnesota for a potential final game of the Warriors season coming up on Wednesday. It will be the case if the Warriors lose on Wednesday. Their season will be over. Plenty more to get into. Mark Randy with you. Warriors wrap-up continues next on 95.7 The Game.
Hard by Reed. Kaminga to shoot two, and Kaminga has words for Reed.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center after the Warriors fall 117-110 in Game 4. It's now a 3-1 series lead for the T-Wolves as the series shifts back to Minnesota for Game number 5. That game coming up on Wednesday. Warriors have to win on Wednesday or their season is over. That's the result of losing both these games at home. They were right there in Game 3. Tonight kind of got away from them. The final score suggests that it was pretty darn competitive, but the game was over with like 6 or 7 minutes left in this one. Final score again, 117-110. The bench squad came in and made it look a little closer than it actually was. It was a 39-17 third quarter where Minnesota turned a 2-point deficit. The Warriors led by 2 at half, and that 39-17 third quarter turned it into a 20-point Minnesota lead going into the fourth. They ride that big lead to an easy fourth quarter, and they win 117-110 to go ahead 3-1 in this series. You just heard Tim Roy call a Jonathan Kaminga highlight there, getting to the free throw line. He got to the free throw line in this game at will at times. Got to the line 12 times, made 11 of them. It's his third consecutive positive game for Jonathan Kaminga. His first half, I think, flatly was the best half for any Warrior in this game. I don't think it was particularly close. Draymond Green had a good start to this basketball game, particularly offensively, getting into the scoring action early, but he kind of petered off in the second quarter. It was Kaminga who was the driving force behind the Warriors' 2-point halftime lead. He finishes this game with 23 points. Didn't have a single rebound, oddly enough, only 1 assist, a steal, turn it over twice, but considering he played 30 minutes and had the ball in his hands a lot, those 2 turnovers, not a terrible number. For example, Buddy Hield had 4 turnovers. Jimmy also had 2. Draymond also had 2. Pajki also had 2. The turnovers were not great for the Warriors in this game. If you include team turnovers, shot clock violations and such, the Warriors committed 16 turnovers. The T-Wolves committed 21. A lot of them came down the stretch, but 21 turnovers for the T-Wolves. Warriors turned that into 24 points. The T-Wolves turned the 16 Warrior turnovers into 15 points. So the Warriors won the turnover battle, but they lost almost everything else, and they lose this game 117-110. But I thought Kaminga had himself a pretty darn good game once again, especially when you consider that prior to Game 2, he had just been out of the rotation entirely and only playing in the event of injuries. I guess that is still technically the case because he's playing because the Warriors have shifted everything around with Steph Curry unavailable. But the first time that he played, it was the one game that Jimmy Butler missed, Game 3 versus Houston in the first round. He played. And then Jimmy Butler came back for Game 4, and Kaminga was right back out of the rotation. So this is his first extended action over the course of multiple games since the near end of the regular season. And when you consider that he has been just kind of sitting and waiting for his time, what he's done the last 3 games becomes that much more impressive. And I thought Kaminga had another notch to his credit in this game, specifically in the first half. In the first half, he had 16 of his 23 points. He was 4 for 6 from the field, only attempted 1 3. It did not go, but if memory serves, it was a late shot clock one where he kind of had to put it up. 8 for 8 from the free throw line in that first half. And I thought the key for Kaminga, and largely for the key for the entire Warriors on offense, was push the tempo. Whenever Kaminga got an outlet pass after a Warriors defensive stop and rebound, Kaminga would look for the ball and he would push relentlessly in transition. It led to his only assist, which was off of that push in transition. A drive for Kaminga, drew the defense, kicked to GP2 in the right corner for an open 3. That was part of a big Warrior run in the first half. And then over and over and over again, he pushed in transition. Maybe some of them weren't technically fast break opportunities, but it was before the defense could get set, saw a matchup that he liked, got to the rim, maybe scored at the rim, or at least got fouled and got to the free throw line, and he was very good from the stripe, 11 for 12 in this game, 8 for 8 in the first half. He was the Warriors' best player in the first half, I think by a pretty big margin. The T-Wolves, though, they paid a whole lot more attention to him in the second half, and he did not have nearly as good of a second half. And I'm only talking about Kaminga here, but that was the case for literally every single Warrior as well. So I don't want this to seem as if this is the focus on Kaminga's rough second half. It was a rough second half for every single Warrior that played in this game, maybe other than the guys who got in garbage time and made the final score look a little bit more respectable. But Kaminga, considering what is being asked of him, major kudos. Third consecutive game where he's looked pretty darn good, and that was specifically the case in the first half. In this game, Warriors don't have a 2-point lead at half without Kaminga. They're probably down by 15 without him at halftime in this game, and they might lose this game by 25 or 30 instead of by 7. Kaminga was a big part of what worked for the Warriors in the first half. But, I mean, frankly, you don't just wave the white flag when Steph goes down with an injury, but frankly, you lose Steph. He's by a mile your best shooter. Your second best shooter is Buddy Hield, who's kind of been a running joke all year for the Warriors fan base. He either goes like 5 for 7 from deep or goes on a stretch where he makes one of his next 15 threes. That's your second best shooter, especially now that Quentin Post has fallen out of the rotation once again because the T-Wolves have just attacked him relentlessly on their offensive end, on the Warriors' defensive end. When that happens and when you're down your star who you build everything around, it's going to be really, really tough. And part of the reason why Jimmy Butler struggled in a game today, I said I'm pretty sure he's just dead tired and probably does not feel good. His tailbone and pelvis does not feel good would be my guess. I mean, you also look at how they're defending him and the Warriors specifically. They're not giving him anything on the inside. And when he drives, you got 2 or 3 dudes shaded his way, and you look to try to pass it out, and you've got Pajemski on one side. You've got GP2 on another side. You've got Draymond Green on one wing. You've got Kaminga on another wing. Like, Kaminga worked great in Game 3, cutting off of Kaminga or off of Butler drives, and that worked to great effect. I would imagine Chris Finch and the T-Wolves coaching staff noticed that and tried their best to take it away, and they did. There was not a lot of drive and cuts for the Warriors in this one. The T-Wolves did a great job taking that away. But if you're Jimmy and they're doubling or tripling you once you get in the paint, and you try to kick it out because you can't possibly score, and your shooters are GP2 and Draymond and a hot and cold Buddy, and Pajemski, who can't hit a 3 to save his life right now, it's not going to end well. And that's kind of the reality the Warriors are facing. It may be a simple analysis, but I think it's the truth. You're down Steph. What do you expect? I'll put it this way. You can't, on one hand, call Steph one of the best players in the NBA, by a mile the Warriors' best player, a top 10 or top 5 player of all time, the best point guard if you think he's better than Magic of all time, and then also expect when he is out for the Warriors to just be okay, like for them to be fine. You can't make up for what Steph brings. He misses and your whole world shatters. And the fact that the Warriors were pretty darn close to win Game 3, honestly, I was impressed. And it's why I feel very confident that if Steph never got hurt, the Warriors would be up 3-1 right now. Because Minnesota hasn't really impressed me. They were great in the third quarter today. It was the best 12 minutes of basketball they've played this series for my money. Even better than the beginning of Game 2 when they got off to a 13-0 beginning. But Steph is out, and it's all right. Maybe we'll catch fire from deep, and Pajemski will make 5 threes. Buddy will make 6. Maybe Quentin Post plays, and he makes 3, right? Draymond catches fire, and he makes 3 or 4 in a game, and we win as a result of that. But if you're not getting these like out-of-left-field performances up and down the roster, I challenge you to find a way for you to win when you're without Steph. I think it's just reality that the Warriors are facing right now. And maybe you say the roster is pretty darn top-heavy, and I would agree with you there. But when you have the money that's tied up with Steph and with Jimmy, and to a lesser degree Draymond, that's what you are. You're a top-heavy roster. Now, I think the Warriors need to be more selective and this is veering to an end of season conversation, so I'm just going to nip this in the bud really quick because the season is not quite over. I do think the Warriors need to be a little bit more, choosy in terms of the players they go after. They just need shooting. They desperately need shooting. Even when Steph is on the floor, they need floor spacers. If Jimmy Butler is a Warrior going forward, and I feel pretty darn confident he will be, considering how successful the Warriors have been since Jimmy Butler was acquired, you need to pair him with shooters. Even if Steph is on the floor, you need more shooters around him. But we shall see what the offseason holds whenever it comes around, because it is not here yet, and who knows, the Warriors might win Wednesday in Minnesota and force a Game 6 back here on Sunday at Chase Center. Okay. Let's go out to the phones here on a Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you, 888-957-9570. Dubs fall in Game 4, 117-110. Now a 3-1 T-Wolves series lead. As promised, out to the phones we go. Up first is Eric, who's in San Francisco. Eric, how you doing, man? What'd you think of that game?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the game that I feared, you know. I mean, the Timberwolves have shooting, and you knew they were going to have one game where they were going to shoot lights out from three, and basically that's what happened. I mean, that's why we really needed to take Game 3, and, you know, I mean, really the thing that bugs me most about tonight's game is, one, 9 shots from Jimmy just isn't going to cut it. And I agree. He's probably just exhausted from back to, I mean, you know, you're playing every other day now for a couple weeks, and he's been playing heavy minutes, and he's 35. But I mean, the thing that really bugs me is the only player who's really given it on offense, who's not afraid to take the shots, going to the hoop, is Kaminga. And like, I understand that Kerr wants to start with a little bit of size, but we're a notoriously slow first quarter starting team, and it's like I don't see how you just don't play Kaminga 44. I mean, you know, obviously whatever the off season with Kaminga, whether we sign and trade him or we keep him, that's a whole discussion for another day. But at this point, I don't see how you do anything other than roll with Kaminga starting, playing 44. He's 22. He hasn't been playing a lot in the playoffs, so he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tire. He's got his confidence going, and right now he's our best threat to just put the ball in the hole. And like, you know, you just run with a Pods, Healed, Butler, Kaminga, Green at the 5, and you throw the kitchen sink and hope that they shoot the way they did in the closeout game against the Lakers, where they were like 7 of 40. Maybe they play with their food a little bit. You take Game 5. Maybe you get Steph back for Game 6. Probably not. But, you know, there's an outside shot of that. You're back on your home floor, and then anything can happen in a Game 7. I mean, do I think the Warriors are drawing dead? Yeah, probably. But I'd like to see them just throw Kaminga out there and let him roll and try and be the feature option in the next game, along with a more assertive Butler. And if you play some defense and you don't give up 70 points in 2 quarters, you know, the Wolves have played down to their competition this year more than once. So, you know, we just hope that Ant-Man doesn't go off. I mean, that guy's a killer. So, and, you know, I just don't see any other formula other than Kaminga goes for 30 in the next game. Butler gets at least 20 shots. And you just hope Pods maybe finds his shot. But, I mean, he has just been – I know he does all the little things, and Kerr loves his connectivity. But at the end of the day, if you can't put the ball in the basket, they're double teaming Healed, and so Pods has got to be the outlet, and he's got to be able to hit that corner 3 that's wide open all the time, and he just hasn't hit it this series. And so, like I said, I think you just roll with Kaminga, like 42 minutes, get him 20-plus shots, get Butler to 15 to 20 shots, and see what happens. See if you can't force a Game 6. And then, you know, you're back on your home floor. Maybe even if without Steph, And then anything can happen in a Game 7, like I said. It's a one-game elimination.
Yeah,
So,
I hear you, Eric. I think you bring up a lot of good points. First of all, I was a little surprised as well. Kaminga didn't even get to 30 minutes, 29 minutes and 31 seconds. Part of it is because the game was over with like 6 minutes left, and the Warriors waved the white flag with like 4.5 to go. So if it was competitive, he gets up above 30. But still, I was thinking 35-plus minutes for Kaminga tonight. I also thought there was a chance they would start Kaminga, but not that big of a deal if you don't start him and he still gets 35 minutes like what happened in Game 3. I do think there were, and part of the reason why the Warriors lost this game was because of the defensive breakdowns, and I'm by no means signaling Kaminga out. A number of Warriors were guilty of this, but because we're talking about Kaminga, and I'm trying to find a reason for why Steve Kerr did not play him more, there were a number of instances where he lost shooters on the outside. One moment where I think he was defending Randall in the right corner. It might have been Naz Reid, one of those two shooting bigs for the T-Wolves. And they ultimately kind of stumble out from the right corner to the right wing, hand the ball off to Anthony Edwards, who used the handoff as kind of like a screen, and the Warriors were switching. And when Anthony Edwards is coming off of a screen on the three-point line, you have to aggressively close out to him to take away the three-point shot, funnel him to Draymond Green in the paint, and Kaminga was a little slow, closing out, led to a wide-open Anthony Edwards three, and he hits it, as he hit all of his shots, essentially, in the third quarter. That was one of the moments where there was just a split second of hesitancy, and that's all that it takes. There was a moment in the second quarter where I can't remember if it was Kaminga had 2 turnovers in the game. One of them was on this possession where he caught a pass cutting towards the hoop from up top from Buddy Hield near half court. Buddy Hield led him and threw it into Kaminga in the paint, and he was kind of in traffic. Not the easiest catch, but Kaminga couldn't quite catch it, got it knocked away, and the T-Wolves go the other way. Kaminga was a little slow getting back in transition and just drifted a little too far back into the paint, led to a wide-open it was Nickeil Alexander-Walker, open three. I'm just trying to find a reason for why Kaminga did not play more, because I agree with Eric. Like, for the pathway to a Warriors win without Steph is like 30 points from Jimmy, 25 points from Jonathan Kaminga. To get 25, you feel like he's got to play 30-plus minutes, maybe 35 minutes, and then you hope one of Buddy, Draymond, Pajemski, GP2 have any kind of shooting night. You get that from Jimmy, that from Kaminga, and shooting nights from really good shooting nights from at least one of those dudes, or maybe decent shooting nights from 2 of those dudes, and you play the same kind of defense you did in Game 3, you have a shot. But the Warriors did not play the kind of defense they did in Game 3, and part of the reason was Warriors losing three-point shooters time and time and time again. I just think they're tired. And that's not an excuse. It doesn't make it okay. But I think it might be their reality. They're never going to admit it, but this kind of felt like a team that is kind of running on E just a little bit right now, running on empty, and they lose this game 117 to 110. And I just see this question on the YouTube chat from Riptide. Why are they tired? Well, they've been playing every other day playoff intensity basketball games for a long time, and you say, well, you know what? So what? You're paid millions of dollars, and yeah. You're right, they are. This is their job. Doesn't mean it's not tiring. I will say, and I said this from the moment they won Game 4 versus the Rockets, to take a 3-1 series lead, close it out in 5 games, win in Houston in Game 5, give yourself the rest you need to recharge and be ready for the next series. And not that they played with their food, but they did not win Game 5. They got blown out. They did not win Game 6. They had to push themselves extra games, get it done in Houston, and then directly fly from Houston to Minnesota for Game 1. They haven't had time off in a long time, and they're led by a 37-year-old and 2 35-year-olds. Houston pushing the series to 7. We're always going to think about the Steph injury as reason number 1 why this series has not gone well for the Warriors. But the Warriors having to fight as hard as they did in the first round, I think, is having a big impact on the way this series is going so far. All right, 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you. Let's go out to, let's see, who's up next here on the phone lines at 888-957-9570. Mike is in Hayward, and Mike wants to discuss this Warriors loss next. Mike, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How you doing?
Hey, all is well, Mr. Mark. Yeah, just really disappointing, obviously. And I think, you and Eric having that conversation, you guys made a lot of good points. And, yeah, just, again, the Kaminga, why hasn't he been playing more? I know for the longest time, like for like, Butler, Kaminga doesn't work. But when Butler was just traded, everyone was ranting and raving about, Butler's going to show him how to do it. And I was assuming they're going to be on the floor at the same time. But so that's one small thing. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean the Jimmy Butler Jonathan Kaminga duo has been highly discussed because again it was Steve Kerr who said multiple times he also talked about the trio if you throw Draymond Green in there, but that trio, that duo of Kaminga and Jimmy, and you also throw in Draymond, hasn't really worked super well for the Warriors. I think it's a little bit different when you have those two out there without Steph. Oddly enough, I think the inclusion of Steph makes it more difficult for Kaminga to fit in. And that's kind of unique because Steph Curry is a player that generally makes everybody around him better. And this isn't like a knock on Kaminga. I think it's just the reality of the kind of player that he is. Kaminga has always been better. And it's why this is a really frustrating experience and a process for Kaminga himself and for Warrior fans. Because Kaminga has very consistently been better when he has more responsibility. Right? He led the Warriors to a win in Houston in overtime early in the year when Steph did not play. And Kaminga was like the Warriors' best player down the stretch and in overtime. They played Houston later on, a couple weeks later, no Steph and no Draymond. Kaminga then scored, I think, a then career-high 32 or 33, and led the Warriors to a win versus the Rockets, who were the second seed in the West. The Warriors got that win because Kaminga was that good without Steph and without Draymond. The next game they played, I believe, was in L.A. versus the Clippers. No Steph in that game as well. Kaminga scored a career high again with 34 points, I believe, in that game. This isn't, and I see it coming across on the YouTube chat right now, I'm not blaming Steph Curry. I'm just saying Kaminga has been at his best when he is entrusted with more responsibility and when he is asked to do to carry more of the offensive load. And that usually only happens when Steph is out. Because when Steph is in, it is everything we do, every ounce of energy we expend on offense, every drip of sweat for us right now is geared towards getting Steph looks. As it should be. He's the best shooter to ever play this sport. Everything you should do should be geared towards making life easier for Steph offensively to get looks. Kaminga is just the kind of player where he has a harder time grasping that. So when Steve Kerr talks about the Butler and Draymond and Kaminga trio, or just the Butler and Kaminga duo not working analytically, is what the numbers suggest, I think it's a given that he's talking about also alongside Steph. It's different when Steph isn't there, and the Warriors realize, okay, we don't have Steph to rely on offensively. Okay, JK, we're going to give you the ball X amount of times a game, and you're going to go to the hoop, get to the line, and give us 20 points a night. Now, you might say, well, the Warriors need that anyway when Steph is playing, and you might be right. I've said all season long, I think the Warriors need, as long as Kaminga is playing, the Warriors need to gear the offense a little bit more towards Kaminga, one, to give them, easier points, even when Steph is on the floor, and to take a little bit of the load and the responsibility off of Steph. They have not done that as much, partly because once Jimmy was acquired, Kaminga was out, and then they started rolling, and then you're kind of just like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But now they're in a position where it hasn't quite worked in the postseason enough to trust any combination that features Steph and Jimmy and Draymond and JK. At least that's how I see it. All right. 888-957-9570. Time for a break. Mark Randy with you. We got more time for your calls. I see you, King. I see you, Telmo. If you hang out on hold, we will get to you when we come back. Warriors fall they fall here in Game 4, 117-110. Now a 3-1 series lead for the T-Wolves as this series shifts back to Minnesota. Time for a break. More coming up next right here on 95.7 The Game.
95-7 the game.
Yeah, offensive rebounds in this one finished 14-6 in favor of the Warriors. Second chance points were 14-9 in favor of the Warriors. Minnesota won the fast break points battle 20-16. The Warriors won the points in the paint battle 54-42. But the difference was the Warriors just shot a worse percentage, and they only made 8 threes to Minnesota's 16 made threes. That's 8 more made threes, which is 24 more points from the three-point line. And the game was really decided in the third quarter. Warriors up by 2 at half, 60-58. And then Minnesota puts together a 39-17 third quarter, and they ride that third quarter to a win, 117-110. You just heard from Tim Roy and Tom Tolbert here on 95.7 The Game. Warriors again lose 117-110. Now a 3-1 series deficit, and it's just what happens when your star goes down in the postseason. There are some players who are just so darn good that when they go down, there's not a whole lot you can do. And that is what the Warriors are going through right now. Steph is out, and the Warriors' whole world shatters. And that is the process that they're currently going through right now. And it does not help when you're Robin to Batman. Batman is out, and then Robin has himself a subpar basketball game. Jimmy Butler deserves his fair share of the blame, if you want to play the blame game for today's performance. He played 34 minutes and 22 seconds, 5 for 9 from the field, 14 points for Jimmy Butler. And Draymond Green did say something post-game. Cam, let me know if you have this Draymond Green sound ready. Give you a minute to get it ready. But I mentioned Jimmy Butler, and to my eye, why I think he only got 9 shots up in 34 minutes and 22 seconds. He looked tired. He looked exhausted. That tailbone injury that he's been dealing with, I'm sure, not 100%, and I'm sure it's still bothering him. But Draymond Green also said something about Jimmy Butler, and maybe this comes across as an excuse. I haven't heard it yet. I was just told about it. Let's listen to it. Draymond Green talking about Jimmy Butler tonight.
Their defense, they were collapsing on him today. We tried to pick up that slack, but I know he's not feeling well. Been pretty crappy all day, so that also affects the energy as well. But no excuses made here. I think that's on me. I got to find a way to get him in more positions to score.
Yeah, they heard it. So the defense did a good job on Jimmy. Draymond takes some of the slack for if they're collapsing on Jimmy, there should be other openings. But he also said that Jimmy's been feeling like crap all day. And I got to give a shout out to our guy, Chris O'Connell, back in our downtown studios, our downtown San Francisco studios. He picked up on this on Saturday because he's the guy for the majority of our Warrior games who all the little cuts that you hear, Draymond right then, or whether you tune in tomorrow, anytime during the day and you hear Steve Kerr talk, you hear Jimmy talk, you hear whoever talk, and those little 30-second sound bites. Our guy Chris in the back is the guy that cuts all those up. And he came to me on Saturday night after the Warriors lost and after he finished up his work and I finished up my work. And he said, I think Jimmy might be sick. Every time in that press conference, he's answering a question, he's in the middle of answering one, or the question is being asked and he's sniffling, he's pausing, he's clearing his throat. He said, I think he might be sick. And again, not an excuse, but Draymond kind of backed that up, saying that Jimmy was feeling crappy all day and hasn't been feeling good. Again, no excuse. But, I mean, you add that on top of the heavy load that Jimmy has had to carry, and the fact that he's dealing with an injured pelvis still, and the fact that he's played every other day for a long time. Now, it all adds up. Not saying that he's free of any blame. Only taking 9 shots, I mean, that simply can't happen in a game like this. That you really, really have to have. This is as close to a must-win as possible, without it technically being a must-win. You got to do more than that. But you consider all of those other factors, it adds up. It adds up, and it felt like all of those things came together for Jimmy Butler in this game. I also mentioned pregame. I mentioned Draymond. Felt like he was going to have a good game. Now, my take it to the bank prediction did come true, but I thought Draymond would be a little bit more effective. You're going to need more from the others. Buddy Hield scored 13. Pajki scored 11. We had a caller earlier, and we're going to go back out to the phones in just a sec. 888-957-9570. So hang out on hold if you're there. I'm coming to you in just a minute. But we had a caller who was complimenting Kaminga for being like the only Warrior who is comfortable like forcing the issue offensively and taking shots. And the caller was 100% right. Kaminga's done a great job of that. And to be frank, he hasn't really ever done a bad job of that. It's partly why, as I was saying earlier, Kaminga hasn't really worked alongside Steph a lot this year, because when Steph is on the floor, everything is just about getting Steph the ball. But when Steph is off the floor and Kaminga's on it, yeah, go get your bucket, young fella. And that's what Kaminga did today. So kudos to Kaminga for that. I will say, Pajemski is also similar in that sense. The issue with Pajemski searching for his shot is that his shot has completely abandoned him. And today specifically, he was taking a lot of bad shots. He was forcing it a little too much. Kaminga was hunting shots, but he was consistently hunting them around the rim and getting to the free throw line, which you don't just live with that. You take it. You encourage it. Pajemski was settling for tough jumpers. He took one. It was a deep two along the left wing in the first half. He had a great defender in Jaden McDaniels draped all over him, and he took a spinning fadeaway over the top of the extended McDaniels. It wasn't an air ball, but it was not close to going in. And you just ask yourself, why are you taking that shot? And there was a number of moments like that for Pajemski today. And the thing about Pajemski is when it's going great, it is going amazing. And it seems like it impacts his confidence going forward. And he is more likely to make his next shot if he makes his previous one or his current one. It also works in reverse. He is going through an incredible shooting slump at the most important time of the season. And every shot that he takes and misses, He's like drooping his head, running back up the court. It is affecting him big time. But he's hunting a little too hard, and he's taking too many bad shots, rushing shots, and taking ill-advised shots. So I will say, Kaminga isn't the only guy unafraid to take his shot. Kaminga has been. Pajemski also has been. But there's a difference in the shots that they're taking. Kaminga is taking higher percentage shots, and Pajemski is just searching to get going offensively, which you don't hate, but don't take the bad ones. Turn down the bad ones. Still take the open corner three, even though it has not been going good for you. Take the open corner one. Don't take the fading deep two with a great long defender draped all over you. Pass that one up. Pass that one up and look for a better shot elsewhere. Pajemski had himself another rough offensive game. And so many people are saying, take Pajemski's minutes away and give them to Kaminga. I hear you. Pajemski plays a position for the Warriors that they just need more ball handlers. And for everything that Kaminga does well and did well today, specifically in the first half, he's not a guy who's going to ball handle and initiate offense for you. It's just not what he's good at. He's great at getting to the hoop, getting to the line, finishing around the rim. Pajemski's not good at that. Pajemski's better at ball handling. Kaminga's not. Like, all these players have pluses and minuses, which is part of the reason why the Warriors either have a good defensive unit in, but a bad offensive unit, or vice versa. They have guys who are good at half the game. Pretty darn good at half the game, but then not great elsewhere. And it's kind of the flaw of this roster when you're down your best player in Steph Curry. All right. Back out to the phones, 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you. Continue to react to this Warriors loss, 117-110. Now a 3-1 series lead for the T-Wolves. Let's keep it rolling here on the phone lines. Up next is the King in Santa Cruz. The King, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I got to break this game into two halves.
All right.
You know, it's... You watch that first half, and you see a pace of play out of the Warriors. I felt like Wolves were on their heels for a lot of those possessions. If you saw them get it out of the basket and push the ball up, we were pushing to get the ball over half court within 3-4 seconds that whole first half. It was a great pace of play, but at the same time, Jimmy Butler had maybe 6 shots, and he went 5 for 9 in the game. Everybody's been talking about Kaminga needing more minutes. Let's be real. Kaminga is not our clutch player. He's not the identity of this team. We brought Jimmy Butler in to redefine that identity, and all of a sudden we're here down Steph Curry, and we need to lean to a guy that we're waiting to walk out the door? I got to put some onus on Steve Kerr. Because if we're up 2 points coming out of that first half, where we're pushing the agenda, we're playing defense, and we're only getting Jimmy Butler a handful of shots in the second half, and depending on a Kaminga to win this game for us, it's just not going to roll. But I want to throw some stats out, too. Jimmy Butler, minus 30 in this game.
Yep.
Minus 30 in this game. With 9 shots, 5 free throws. That's not a winning basketball game for a team on the brink of elimination. Another really important stat, Pods. People are going to hate on Pods for, he went 3 of 14 tonight. I think he was minus 9 on the game. That's a huge impact still in the game. The huge hole from the first half to the second half is Kevon Looney minutes. Kevon Looney was, I think, plus 6 or 7 tonight. We had
plus 3.
Presence. Plus 3. Still, no presence the second half from Kevon Looney. I think it really all comes down to we were pressing the agenda, they were ready, and we got to give some flowers real quick to the Timberwolves. Nobody's been talking about that. How about Julius Randle's first half? I mean, that was a man-sized first half. A couple of those fadeaway threes, 2 people on him. And then Anthony Edwards, one of my favorite players in the game right now. I fell in love with that dude during the Olympics. Hell of a second half. We got to give the flowers to those Timberwolves. But, I mean, dude, we're struggling out there. We are a nice squad. I think Moses Moody needs more minutes. But Kerr's got to remember what our identity is. It's not Kaminga coming to save the day. We got to highlight Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, appreciate the call, King. I thought the Warriors getting out in transition, you were talking about the tempo of the game, getting out in transition was a big reason why they had the lead in the first half, and that goes hand in hand with Kaminga because Kaminga was the driving force behind the Warriors' fast break in the first half. 9 fast break points in the first half for the Warriors. They finished with 16, so only 7 in the second half. Not a major difference, but it did feel like the pace favored the Warriors more in the first half than those numbers might suggest. And the fast break points are not, and they're an imperfect stat, right? Because there are so many instances where it's not technically a fast break, but you push the ball, and even though all 5 defenders are back, you are going quick enough that they're not quite set, and you get a mismatch, and that mismatch, which you gain through pushing the tempo, leads to an advantage that leads to a bucket or points, whether it comes on a made field goal or made free throws. Those aren't fast break points. I think the Warriors built their 2-point lead. They had a 2-point lead at half, thanks in a major part because of the way that they got defensive stops and pushed the ball the other way. And I had a caller earlier, or a texter on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. Hard to tell tone over text, but I think they were trying to get me in a gotcha moment because I was talking about how Steph's out, and simply put, Steph's out, you're going to lose. I think if Steph's in, the Warriors win this game, and I can't remember exactly who texted it. I can try to scroll back and find it. The 510 said, are you saying the Wolves shooting would have been affected by Steph being in there? And, of course, Steph is not the defensive stopper who's going to take away Ant Edwards and Julius Randle threes. But you know how a lot of those Ant Edwards and Julius Randle's threes came about, and even Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dante DiVincenzo and a few others? How did those threes come about? Naz Reid made a 3. A lot of those come when the Warriors' defense is in scramble mode. They're not set, and the T-Wolves catch the Warriors kind of, in that scramble mode, and you get an open look. And how does a defense get in that scramble mode? When your offense is not putting the ball in the basket, when you are having bad offensive possessions, and when you're turning it over, when you're missing threes, leading to, long defensive rebounds that lead to fast break and open looks. So having Steph Curry, yes, it helps your defense, believe it or not. Not because Steph is a defensive stopper, but because you have Steph, you are going to be better offensively. You're going to get better looks. You're going to make more. You're going to turn the ball over less, even though Steph does have his fair share of turnovers. In general, I think 100% of us out there would agree when Steph is on the floor, the Warriors' offense is better. And when your offense is better and executing at a higher level, it puts your defense in a better spot. It's why Steve Kerr said the same thing is true in reverse as well. He was talking about the lack of three-point shots the Warriors attempted in Game 1. They only attempted, 23? For perspective, they put up 27 today. For their standards, still not a ton. They only attempted 5 in the first half on Saturday in Game 3. Part of it is because they don't have a lot of good shooters, but getting those good looks happens when your defense gets you stops on the other end. When the opposing offense is struggling, it is easier for you to get better looks. And the Warriors were not stopping Minnesota enough to generate good looks offensively. It is all connected. So yes, Steph Curry makes the Warriors defense better through nothing that he does defensively, even though I have said for years he's an underrated defender. It's because of what he does offensively. It sets the Warriors up for success on the defensive end as well. It is all connected. All right, back out to the phones we go. 888-957-9570. Who's up next here? Let's see. We've got Hattie. Hattie in San Jose. You were at the game. Hattie, you're on Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Randy. How you doing?
Yeah, hey, Mark. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Trying to make sense of this Warrior loss. What did you think of the game?
Yeah, first half, obviously, it got my hopes up. But I think ultimately that buzzer beater at the end of the second, I think that kind of just gave the T-Wolves momentum. And I just think we did this to ourselves, obviously, losing Game 3, we were in that game. And I just think we had to win at least one of these games, right? And, again, I just thought today, third quarter, it just got away from us. JK could only do so much. Jimmy only taking 9 shots. I just think that's we didn't trade for Jimmy to pass the ball, right? We traded for him to take at least 20 shots, and it just hasn't happened. I think you can kind of tell that tailbone is kind of still affecting him in a way. And then I just think Pods. I think Steve Kerr, he's kind of just scared to, bench Pods in a playoff game, but if he misses his first 5-6 open looks, then I think, he just has to pull the trigger and, bring in Moses Moody or even Guy Santos, or even Kevin Knox, who gave an energy, during garbage time. And I just think Pods, how much could we really trust him in a playoff game now? He's really been underwhelming. I think he had one, maybe 2 good games in the first round. But I just think Steve has to trust the bench more. And we ran a 12-man rotation up until Jimmy came in, and that kind of helped us stay in games too. Last thing before I know it's getting late, but last thing here is whatever happens next game, even if JK goes 0 for 10. One thing that we learned kind of just from this series is we can't lose JK for nothing. We got to, again, sign and trade or even re-sign him. I just think he's too valuable to lose for nothing. But, yeah, so let me know what you think, Mark. You have a good night.
I appreciate the call, Hattie. And thanks for the kind words. Hope you have a good night as well. On the JK front, it's never good business to lose anybody for nothing. So whether it is extend him and you keep him around or you sign and trade him, that's better than just letting him walk. We'll see what the Warriors do. That's a conversation we could have down the road. The season is not yet over. I know it kind of feels that way. It is not over. We might be, less than 48 hours away from that, but we're not there just yet. You're talking about, benching Pajemski. And look, he is really, really struggling to shoot. He came in today. Let's add in today's numbers. So now in the last 5 games for Pajemski, his numbers from deep are 4 for 24 over the last 5 games. That's just simply put, not going to cut it specifically when you're now dealing without Steph Curry. It's very simple. The Warriors need more from Pajemski offensively. I do feel a little bit for Pajemski because life got infinitely more difficult on him once Steph went down, and it's not just that the responsibility ticked up, right? You lose Steph and you lose his 25 to 30 points tonight. How are you going to make up for him? One of the biggest beneficiaries you would think in terms of minutes and shots and responsibility is Pods. So maybe Pods up your average from 12 a game to 16 a game. And there you can take out, 4 of those points per game. Maybe you get all the way up to 18 a game and you take out 6 extra points per game there. And that partly makes up for Steph. He's being asked to do a lot more in his first postseason run as a pro. Not an easy thing to do. But the other half of it, and there's probably the bigger, more important half, and probably goes further to explain his struggles, is when Steph is out, that frees up Minnesota's best defenders to defend Pajemski, their best perimeter defender to defend Pajemski. Now Jaden McDaniels is hounding Pajemski. Not an easy thing to do. Now, if you're Pajemski and you have dreams of being an all-star, dreams of being a franchise centerpiece and being, a piece for the future of the Warriors after Steph and Draymond and Jimmy are all gone, then you accept the challenge and you hope you do better than you've done so far. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Pajemski has an easy job right now. He does not. Now, as far as it goes for, Kevin Knox playing instead of Pajemski, or I think the caller mentioned Moody and Guy Santos. Look, I hear you. Pajemski's really struggled offensively. Nobody is denying that. Those guys all play different positions. Pajemski, when Steph is out, is one of the few ball handlers that Steve Kerr trusts to initiate offense without turning the ball over. Like, you ask Moses Moody to do that, it's going to be a disaster. Not against Moses. Like, that's not the player that he is. He's not a point guard. And you might think Pajemski's not a true point guard either, and you might be right. But guess what? The Warriors don't have a true point guard on this roster. Even when Steph is healthy, like, they don't have a true point guard. You're making the best with what you have, and Pajemski is one of the few ball handlers left. Like, their three best ball handlers are Pajemski, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Without Steph, that's it. So if you stop playing Pajemski, how are you going to initiate offense? You're going to have to ask more from Jimmy Butler. He's already carrying such a heavy load, and according to Draymond, is sick. So I don't know what else you want him to do. Now, if Pajemski hurts you enough offensively, he was not good today, and I said it off the top. Forcing shots, taking rough shots, early in shot clocks. Wait, you can get that shot at any point. Take those tough ones at the end of the shot clock if you haven't found a good one before then. Yes, he is struggling. The decision-making is a lot worse than it has been in the past. You can tell if you just watch him, whether you're in chase or watching on TV. Every missed shot is weighing on him heavily. It has not been a good stretch for him. But he still, simply put, even if his shots are not falling, he is doing things that Steve Kerr does not trust anybody else on the roster to do. And that is completely separate from his shooting. That's why he's playing more minutes than I think a lot of us out there maybe would feel comfortable with, considering the way that his shot is going. That is how I see it. All right. 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you. I think we still got some callers out there. Andrew, I see you. We'll take a quick break. We're going to go past midnight, folks. It was a long game. It began at 7, more like 7:25. A lot of fouls in that fourth quarter. So we're going to go post midnight. We'll have some early morning Warriors wrap up with you when we come back. We will hear from Steve Kerr. More time for your calls and your text if you want to continue to weigh in as well. Warriors fall 117-110, and their season is now on the brink. 3-1 series lead for the T-Wolves, headed back to Minnesota for game number 5. We'll, of course, have that game for you right here on 95.7 The Game. All right, time for a break. We're back post-midnight on Warriors Wrap-Up right after this. I'll be back on Tuesday morning. It's Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game.
IRS, they tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to...
95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Warriors fall 117-110. The season is now on the brink. They're down 3-1 in the series to the T-Wolves. T-Wolves have a chance to advance to the Western Conference Finals for the second consecutive season if they win on their home floor coming up on Wednesday. Let me double-check the time of that game. It is in Minnesota, so maybe it's a slightly earlier game. That game is at 6:30, which means Warriors Live at 5:30 on Wednesday. Of course, we'll have all the coverage for you on Wednesday right here on 95.7 The Game. We certainly hope it is not the last game of the season for the Warriors. If they win that, they would return home for Game 6 on Sunday. And part of the reason why there was, despite Steph's injury, still a decent level of optimism, I think, within the Warriors locker room for a number of us at 95.7 The Game, and I think for all of you. So you play Wednesday, you have Thursday off, Friday off, and Saturday off. 3 full days off before Game 6 on Sunday. And part of the reason for optimism was if you are lucky enough, if you're able to force a Game 6, that means you at worst have won 2 games. At worst in Game 6, you're down 3-2. And Game 6 feels like Game 5 is still possible for a Steph Curry return. And I just got this text on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line from the 408. Mark, would you even consider bringing back Steph in desperation for Game 5? If Steph's ready to come back, you bring him back. If he's not ready, you don't. He's going to be reevaluated on Wednesday before the game. Generally, when a player gets reevaluated for the first time post-injury, they're usually still not close to ready to come back. So I personally would be surprised if Steph plays Wednesday, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. If you don't feel good about him playing, you do not rush him back. And I think the Warriors would be even more hesitant to do that, considering maybe the last time they did something like that, it resulted in a Kevin Durant torn Achilles in the NBA Finals. Not that you fear exactly that's what's going to happen to Steph, but you put a compromised player out there because you're desperate to win a basketball game, and you might lose him for the entire next season. That is a possibility. So, no, I don't think the Warriors do that out of desperation. Steph will play on Wednesday if he's ready to play. If he's not, he won't. But part of the reason why there was, I think, confidence in the Warriors, even after Steph went down with the injury in Game 1 and we got the initial prognosis after Game 1 that he was going to miss at least a week, which meant probably at least going to miss 3 games. You circled Sunday, Game 6, as a real possibility because 3 full days off between Game 5 and Game 6. The Warriors had to win one more game to get there, and if you're down 3-2 and Steph comes back for Game 6, you feel good about your ability to win at home in that game, and then who the hell knows what happens one game, Game 7 in Minnesota, for a chance to go to the Western Conference Finals. I said it from the jump, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the T-Wolves. This T-Wolves team feels very beatable. And I'm a Warrior fan. You could call me a homer. I know we had a T-Wolves fan in our YouTube chat earlier, and shout out to you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I can't quite find exactly who it was. I know I responded to you during the commercial break on the YouTube chat. Kron151, T-Wolves fan, who said, you're keeping it 100. A couple of T-Wolves analysts were saying similar things that I was saying. Appreciate you tuning in. Kron, you might disagree with me here. Maybe this is the first thing I say you disagree with, but appreciate you tuning in nonetheless, even if you yell at me and call me a homer now. I think if Steph's healthy, the Warriors are up 3-1 in this series, and hell, it might be a sweep. I haven't been that impressed by the T-Wolves. They played their best game today. Ant Edwards was amazing, and Ant was great in the second half of Game 3, but it took an otherworldly second half for Ant just for the T-Wolves to beat a Warrior team without Steph. I think Steph is enough to win the Warriors that basketball game. He's probably enough to win the Warriors this basketball game. I think they're up 3-1 at worst, which is what makes this so much more difficult because the Warriors felt like Maybe they're an injury to Steph away from going back to the Western Conference Finals. But, hey, it's what happens in postseason basketball. I think you go back to the 2015 season when the Warriors played a Grizzlies team that suffered an injury to Mike Conley, and then in the finals that year, Kevin Love got hurt and Kyrie Irving got hurt. So you're playing a Cavs team that's basically just LeBron and then Tristan Thompson and Matthew Dellavedova. Like, that happens on the way to a championship, on the way to postseason series wins. Generally, the healthier team is going to win. So it's not as if the Warriors got screwed. It's the first time it's ever happened. No, this happens. It's unfortunate when it happens. It's unfortunate when it happens for your team. It's unfortunate when it happens against your team, even if it helps your team win. You want to see everybody at full strength. And by the way, another injury suffered today. Looked like Jason Tatum might have suffered a really bad injury at the tail end of that game for the Celtics, who are now on the ropes, just like the Warriors, down 3-1. Like, this happens. It sucks. The good news is it's not like a season-ending injury for Steph for next year. But sometimes it's just as simple as, are your stars healthy? And for the Warriors, it's a no. For the T-Wolves, it's a yes. And that might be the ultimate deciding factor in this series, although it is not quite over just yet. All right. Let's keep it rolling here on the phones. 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you on Tuesday morning. Am I reading that right? It's past midnight? Oh, brother. Let's keep it rolling here on Warriors Wrap-Up. 888-957-9570. Andrew has been hanging out patiently in the city. Andrew, how you doing? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on a Tuesday morning. Thanks for hanging out so late, Andrew. How you doing? Andrew, you there? All right, let's move on next. After Andrew, we've got Kevin. Kevin's all the way in Louisiana. Kevin, it's 3 a.m. back there, or 2 a.m. I forget. Is Louisiana a 2-hour difference? Whatever. Kevin, how you doing? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up.
Okay, how you doing? Look, I heard what you said when you said about Steve needs Pajki, to run the offense. But he has to have a move to the basket. We didn't have any cohesion amongst the other players and the team, and that really showed in this game. The cohesion would have been there on defense. We could have sustained enough to, probably muster some points. But without no team cohesion with the other players, you can't mount enough defense to go ahead and make that happen. Jimmy has not been with the Warriors that long. I understand he's playoff Jimmy, but people got to understand Jimmy hasn't been with the Warriors that long, and for them to do what they did is really an accomplishment in itself. We need another point guard because Pajki doesn't have a move to the basket. And, when he goes to the basket, they stop him right in the paint, so he has to dish it out. But I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and have it and listen to you. I appreciate you letting me talk on the call.
Yeah, of course, Kevin. Thanks so much for calling in. And yeah, I do have confirmation. Shout out to our YouTube chat. Shout out to Robert. Robert, who told me Louisiana 2 hours ahead. I always thought Louisiana was Eastern time zone, but 2 hours ahead, Louisiana. So thanks, Kevin, for hanging out past 2 a.m. out there in Louisiana. Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on, Kevin. Like, I was talking about Pajki being, I think, a necessary play for the Warriors right now because of what he does as a ball handler. Not that he's, like, amazing at it, but because of the lack of other options the Warriors have. The Warriors roster, and of course, I mean, the roster looks so much worse when you don't have Steph to mask some of the ills. Like, if there's a major takeaway from this series, it is... Although I think it's difficult to do because all of us here in the Bay, and don't have to be from the Bay, maybe you're Kevin in Louisiana who's a big Warrior fan, or wherever you are around the world, you are a Warrior fan and you've watched Steph for a decade plus do the amazing things that he's done. But maybe we also have underestimated just how important Steph is. Like, every absence that Steph has, it's like, oh, he should be the MVP like year in and year out because of what he means to everybody on this roster. So, of course, the roster is going to look a whole lot worse, and the play is going to be quite a bit more ugly without Steph. It's just natural when you have one of the best players to ever pick up a basketball in the history of the world. It's not going to work quite as well. I think specifically for the Pajemski conversation, he is a necessary play for Steve Kerr right now because of the lack of other options. It does not mean, though, he is a perfect option. And if the Warriors had another option on their roster, it's why they signed DeAnthony Melton this offseason to be the backup point guard. And why he was actually starting alongside Steph right before he got hurt. And then when Melton got hurt, they had to continue to rely on Pajemski more. He had the really rough beginning to his second season this year, and as a result, they traded for Dennis Schroeder to be the secondary ball handler behind Steph. Like, they have done this song and dance multiple times already this year and realized that Pajemski is not the perfect secondary ball handler, at least not yet in his career. Not a knock on Pajemski. He has plenty of room and time to grow. But he's not the perfect number 2 behind Steph. It's a difficult thing to do. The Warriors have tried to find that guy, and you generally have found it in Jimmy Butler, but now you're without Steph. So what the hell do you do now? Pajemski is just the best option that they have to fill that position. And now he's having to do it while also taking like the best perimeter defender on along with the uptick in responsibility. So I feel for Pajemski because he's obviously going through like maybe one of the worst shooting slumps of his career when you consider the circumstance and the importance of the game. But he's also having to take on this extra responsibility with great defenders draped all over him. It's not an easy thing to do, but there is no doubt that he has struggled, and it has hurt the Warriors mightily, specifically, the last 2 games. All right, let's keep it rolling. We got one more call here right now. Let's see. Ryan is in Oakland, and I know Ryan wants to talk about some of Steve Kerr's decisions today. Ryan, you're on Warriors Wrap-Up on this Tuesday morning. Good morning, Ryan. How you doing?
Morning, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
I got a lot to say. I'm going to try to say it as fast as possible. My bone to pick with Kerr starts with the playing games. We did the playing games. We sat Kaminga for the first 2 games, didn't get any playing time, even though we gave Santos, we gave other guys playing times, a little 2 minutes, 3 minutes here or there. We killed JK's confidence. We didn't play him at all versus Houston as well. And then we lean on him, and he's giving us 25-point nights. Then you look at Pajemski. He's having a terrible series, yet he's still getting, how many minutes is he getting? He got, what is this?
He played 33 minutes tonight. Yeah.
33 minutes, 3 of 14 shooting. I don't understand how Kerr puts the subs in, even when he did in Houston, and we see massive effort. But then he continues to give guys like Pajemski these long leashes for whatever reason, and he's killing us. He's got to play other players. Mix it up. Get some other guys in there. I recognize that we don't have a point guard, but you can't call Pajemski the point guard when he has 1 assist, 3 of 14 shooting in 33 minutes. Kevin Looney was a better guy in there. 8 for 8, 8 points, 8 rebounds in 14 minutes. Santos gave us 7 points in 5 minutes. Spencer gave us 2 points in 5 minutes. Post gave us 5 in 5 minutes. You got to try the other guys, especially when we look so tired out there. It drives me crazy that Kerr continues to give the longest leashes to guys like him. Even Buddy Hield, I know he was the savior in Game 7. I know he did a great job in Game 1. But look, we won Game 1 when Curry went down and he played the entire plethora of the team. Why would you ever go away from that? He's got to have the shortest of short leashes for every player not named Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry, or Draymond Green for that matter. Now, I know he had a bad game the last game, but he gives us a little bit more in the defensive end. But, man, look, Pajemski had some good plays. He had some good turnovers. That can come in 10 to 15 minutes. You don't have to play this guy 33 minutes for 11 points and 3 rebounds. This is ridiculous. Play some other players. Get some juice on the floor. Give it a mix. And then he went full court in the second half, full court, and we dropped like 6 to 8 points on that full court press. It drives me crazy how we can have a game one and everyone calls him the coach of the year for playing his entire bench just to go away from everything that won him a game one. It drives me nuts, and I love you, Coach, but you have got this falls on Coach, not any player in particular. This falls on Coach. You cannot play somebody that often and think it's going to change after the fourth game now. This is on Coach. You can't play Pajemski that much if he's giving you this little.
I hear you, Ryan.
You got to switch it up.
I hear you. I think and you're getting a lot of love from our YouTube chat right now. I think there's a lot of Warrior fans out there that agree with you. I'm just going to say, you're talking about fewer minutes for Pajemski and playing Kevon Looney more. Like, that's just not even an option. Like, Kevon, maybe you want more Kevon Looney minutes, but he's not taking minutes away from Pajemski. It is an imperfect roster, even with Steph, but specifically without Steph. You can't play Looney along with Draymond and Jimmy and GP2. Like, it just doesn't work. You can't even throw Moses Moody in there. You're talking about a short leash, and you're talking about more minutes for these other guys. Steve Kerr's had a short leash with Moses Moody. Like, and I'm not denying Pajemski's not struggling. Of course he is. He just fills a position and plays a position the Warriors don't have other people to fill. Moses Moody cannot fill that position. GP2 cannot fill that position. Buddy Hield cannot fill that position. Jonathan Kaminga cannot fill that position. If you think the Warriors' offense is rough now, take one ball handler out of the equation. It's just simply not going to work, or at the very least, it's not something that Steve Kerr is confident is going to work. And maybe you say, well, Steve Kerr, jump out of your comfort zone. And okay, I'll hear you, but I will also say I'm not going to just assume that the Warriors get to where they are right now if they change up what they did in order to get here, right? Like, who's to say the reliance on Pajemski and not playing Kaminga and starting Moses Moody for a stretch, all of those things had to fall directly into place for the Warriors to make the postseason, to lose to the Clippers at the end of the regular season, to beat Memphis in the play-in game, to get the 7 seed so you could play Houston the 2 seed instead of, Denver the 3 seed, or whatever it was. The Lakers were the 3 seed, Denver was the 4 seed, and then beat the Rockets by the skin of your teeth in Game 7. Like, you change up one part of that equation, you might not be the 7 seed. You might, even if you were the 7 seed, still lose to the Rockets in the first round, and then we're not even talking about them having a chance in this series. So, I hear you, and what is going on right now is maddening, especially, again, because it feels like this is a series the Warriors would win at full strength. But I can't pretend that if you changed what got the Warriors here, they still would have gotten here. Like, they got here by the skin of their teeth. They have had a window. Like, they're trying to thread a needle through an incredibly small window, and they've done a pretty damn good job of doing that. They're in the second round as a 7 seed after being, 26-27 when they acquired Jimmy Butler? That is almost impossible to imagine happening once the trade went down. And yet they're here. Who knows how it would have changed had they not gone exactly the way that they went about it. And if they went, the way they went about it worked, I don't know why you'd go away from it until something changes. Guess what? Something changed. Steph got hurt. Now you throw everything up into the air and you start over, which was what Game 2 was. What do we have? What combos are going to work without Steph? We haven't seen the Warriors, other than a 2-game stretch where they got dominated in Atlanta and dominated in Miami. We have not seen the Warriors with Jimmy without Steph. How the hell do they know what's going to work when Steph is out? It is impossible to know. So Game 2 as the information gathering game, and then you move on from there. And guess what? What they did in Game 2 gave them a puncher's chance to win Game 3, up by 5 in the fourth. Now they fell short. Okay, a loss is a loss no matter how many points it comes by. But they gave themselves a good shot, and I guarantee you, If they did not use Game 2 the way they did, Game 3 would not have been as close. If they didn't try TJD in Game 2, they didn't try Kaminga in Game 2, maybe they don't end up playing in Game 3. So I will fire back at you and say they have tried new things. And frankly, it's given them a good chance to win in Game 3. Didn't quite work in Game 4 because your stars were not as good as they were in Game 3, and you lose as a result. Sometimes it's just as simple as your star is not playing, and then you lose as a result. And that is, I think, the reality the Warriors are staring in the face. Okay, we're running out of time here. We got one more call. Nick is in Berkeley. Nick will wrap us up here on Warriors Wrap Up. Nick, how you doing? You're on with Grandy on Warriors Wrap Up. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Grandy? Hey, man, I just want to say that the Warriors are scrapping, but I would like to see maybe, Davis and Post start, and then put Draymond and Jimmy and whatchamacallit, the youngster. I can't remember. My slipped my name. Do it at the black hair, the guard, whatever. But if there's any deficiencies with the Warriors right now, it's because. Like, why didn't we pick up a guard? What is Dunleavy doing? You know what I'm saying? We can't put it all on Kerr and everything, and the players all the time. The org has to get better players, man. They doing too much in the B League and not doing enough. With the Warriors right now. But I'm just like, we have to have foresight enough to understand that if we're getting so old, then why are we trying to run up and down the court? We got to slow it down, man. We got to slow it down and you go to some post-up offense and really slow the Timberwolves down and make them run around on defense, and that'll get us open looks late in the game, man. If we got them working, we pound them out on our half-court offense, then, defense, they're going to be a little bit more tired. So I would say just slow the game down and start working a little half-court offense, man. Start trying to sprint up and down the court. If we're tired, then why are we doing that?
Yeah, I hear you, Nick. I can't lie to you, Nick. I can't get beyond your first point, which was, what the hell is Dunleavy doing? Dunleavy saved the Warriors season. I hope everyone remembers that, right? I mean, the Warriors were dead in the water until they acquired Jimmy Butler. And maybe you credit the Jimmy Butler acquisition to the Suns and their inability to get out of their own way. And okay, still someone has to make the deal. Mike Dunleavy saved the Warriors season. Like, it's as simple as that. Now, Jimmy did, but who acquired Jimmy? Mike Dunleavy. Now, do they need more shooting? Yes. Do they need to get younger? Yeah, probably, especially if you're relying on 37-year-old Steph, 35-year-old Draymond, and 35-year-old Jimmy. You need youth around them. To the most point, they do have youth around them. They need more shooting. That's why I was huge proponent of Cam Johnson at the trade deadline. That did not happen. He's still a net. He might be on the trade market this offseason. Who knows? Maybe the Warriors can get creative and find a way to bring him to Golden State. I think that would change the way the Warriors offense looks and feels. They need more shooting, yes. But again, let's not pretend that this Warrior season was not dead in the water, dead on arrival. They were not going to make the postseason if they did not have Jimmy Butler. And now we're upset at a potential second-round series out. Like, the come-up has been real for the Warriors this season. I know we have expectations of a championship, but that's what happens when you are the Warriors organization. Anything less than that kind of feels like a failure. But we got to remember where we were before Jimmy Butler came here. Okay, we are running a little bit late here. Cam, I apologize, but let's hear from Steve Kerr really quick. We'll go a little bit past 12:30. I know we all want to get out of here and head home. It's been a long day, but we got to hear from the coach before we say goodbye, see if he said anything really, really important that we got to touch on. We'll do that. We'll come back, gather our thoughts, say goodbye. It's Warriors Wrap-Up. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr after tonight's loss. Again, 117-110. The final now a 3-1 series lead for the T-Wolves as the series shifts back to Minnesota for game number 5. Here is the Warriors head coach Steve Kerr postgame.
Well, Ant got going, and we decided to go to a bigger lineup with JK and Trace, Draymond, Jimmy, just to try to slow them down and slow Ant down. And obviously didn't work. They kept scoring, and we couldn't score. So we just lost our ability to connect the game there in that third quarter, and they got loose, and that was the difference in the game.
Where did you see the main issues defensively tonight?
Well, they went 16 for 34 from three. It felt like there were some in the third quarter where we got disconnected defensively, and they got wide open looks. I also thought they hit some really tough shots as well. They played a great game, and obviously took it to us. And we got to bounce back. We got a flight to Minneapolis tomorrow and a chance to extend the series, and that's the plan.
Steve, hypothetical, but if Steph on game day said, I feel I can go, I want to give it a try, would he go then, or there's a possibility he would be overruled?
When are we giving the update? Wednesday we'll have an update.
Steve, after taking 26 shots in Game 3, Jimmy only has 9 tonight. What were you seeing from him, what the Wolves are doing defensively, and just how he was playing overall?
Well, he wasn't as aggressive tonight, but I didn't see a lot of openings either. It's ideally we could put more shooting around him to open up the floor a little bit, but with Steph out, we're not going to be able to do as much of that. But with that said, we'll look at the tape and see where we can find some openings for him, and I know he'll be aggressive for Game 5.
All right, that's Steve Kerr postgame, talking about Jimmy Butler there at the end. Said he didn't see, only took 9 shots, wasn't as aggressive or assertive in this game, but off his first viewing of the game, didn't really feel like he had a lot of openings, and that's the way Minnesota was defending. I talked about this as it relates to Pajki specifically. Steph is out. It means the T-Wolves now have the resources to spend a lot more energy defensively on everybody else. Steph is the center of the universe for opposing coaching staffs, for opposing defenses. You take Steph out of the equation, I swear to God, Chris Finch and everyone on that Timberwolves bench feels 10 times more confident in their ability to limit Jimmy Butler, to limit Brandon Pajemski, to limit Buddy Hield, to take away what Draymond does offensively, because they don't have to worry about Steph. And I think you saw that tonight. I think it's a credit to Jimmy for what he did in Game 3 and for Kaminga as well. I also think a little bit more so today. Kaminga was a target of the Wolves' game plan, and to his credit, he was great in the first half. But I think the T-Wolves, they found a little bit of a solution to limiting Kaminga in that second half, and as a result, he wasn't quite as efficient in that second half. All right. Final thing to get to here on Warriors Wrap-Up. It's Crashing the Boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Crashing the boards for the Warriors in this one. We had a couple of shout-outs of this guy from our callers earlier today. It is Kevon Looney, the vet. He played fewer than 14 minutes, but had 8 rebounds. That is more than a rebound every other minute. That is one hell of a pace. He had 8 points and 8 boards. And of the Warriors that played non-garbage time minutes, Kevon Looney was the only Warrior in the plus. How about that? +3, Kevon Looney, plus minus in his 13 minutes and 51 seconds. He grabbed 8 boards to lead the way for the Warriors. He gets the honor of crashing the boards, which is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Our thanks, as always, to Chilton Auto Body. One last thing. Steve Kerr asked about, I think it was Scott Ostler, who asked Steve Kerr about, what if Steph says, I'm ready to play Wednesday for Game 5? Is that it? Does he have the final say, or might he get overruled? Steve Kerr did not answer the question and just said, well, when are we putting out an update? And Raymond Ritter, the Warriors' great PR man. By the way, the Warriors' PR staff just won, I apologize, I don't remember the name of the award, but essentially PR Staff of the Year for the NBA. So congrats once again to the Warriors PR staff. I know they have won that award a lot lately. They do a great job, and I appreciate them for putting me up here inside a Chase Center in an office room. But Raymond Ritter answered Wednesday. So Steve Kerr then turned to Scott Ostler and said, we will give you an update on Wednesday, which is also the day of Game 5. That's the next time we expect to hear anything from the Warriors about Steph Curry and his status for Game 5 and beyond, dealing with that left hamstring strain. All right, that'll do it. It's been a long day. It's now into Tuesday. I appreciate all of you for sticking with me here on Warriors Wrap-Up. It has been great being with you tonight. Hopefully this is not my last time doing Warriors wrap-up because my man Evan Giddings will be on the post-game show coming up on Wednesday for Game 5 in Minnesota. I definitely hope that is not the last game of the season because if that's the case, this is my last Warriors wrap-up of the year. Come on, Warriors. Get the job done Wednesday. Bring us back home for Game 6 on Sunday. We will keep our fingers crossed until then. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Mark Randy signing off. Warriors lose 117-110. The series now shifts to Minnesota for Game 5 on Wednesday. Lose and the Warriors season is over. Win, and again, Game 6 coming back on Sunday. Shout out to all of you for tuning in. My thanks as well to both Cam Williams and Chris O'Connell back in our downtown San Francisco studios. My name is Mark Randy signing off. Good morning. I'll talk to you next time on 95.7 The Game.
Big goals take more than hard work. They take the right support, and that's where My Outdesk comes in. Our experienced global virtual assistants handle the busy work so that you can focus on growth without the high cost of hiring in-house.